Hi, I'm Megan,
I'm Liora.
and we're the founders of oVertone.
Today we're going to talk about hair and color. How do you choose?
What is the color wheel and why is it important to consider when you're coloring your hair?
So I'm sure we've all seen the color wheel before. It's that giant round shape with all the colors sort of neatly put into it. And the reason why it's important to think about when you color your hair is because it can tell you how easy or difficult moving from one color to another is going to be.
Colors that are close to each other on the color wheel work really nicely together. You can layer one on top of another and move from one to the other really easily without using bleach on your hair. Colors across from each other on the color wheel, when combined, usually create kind of an ugly, muddy, gray or brown color. They don't work nicely together and they're really hard to transition to and from.
So for example, if Megan wanted to move to red from her pink, it would be really simple because if you look at them on the color wheel, they're almost right next to each other, meaning that they're so close in shade that you would have to do very little in terms of removing pink from her hair to get to the red. Whereas if she decided she wanted to go to green, for example, which is almost exactly opposite on the color wheel, there would be a lot of work going in terms of removing as much pink as possible to create a completely new shade.
Does your hair have to be platinum blonde to use oVertone?
No, but depends on the color that you want to see at the end of the day. If your goal is blue hair, platinum's probably your best bet just based on color theory. The way that we typically like to explain this is that you should imagine your starting hair color as a piece of paper and that oVertone are like markers. So if you're starting with platinum hair, your paper is white, you take your oVertone blue marker and you color, you get a color that's really true. You get true blue. But if your starting hair color is brown, so you're starting with like a brown paper and you want blue hair, you have your brown paper, you take your oVertone blue marker and you color over it. Yes, the color will still be there, but because of what the color is underneath, you're going to get a different result.
What colors can you use if you have platinum blonde hair? Basically anything you want. Platinum blonde, like Liora said in the paper metaphor, is basically a white sheet of paper. It's completely colorless or very, very close to colorless, and any shade on top of that is going to show up really true to tone. So whether you bleach your hair up to that shade or your hair happens to naturally grow out of your head that color, you can put any shade of oVertone on top and you're going to get a really perfectly true to color tone.
What colors can you use if you have dirty blonde hair?
So platinum blonde is pure white. Dirty blonde, you have a little bit more yellow. So if you remember the color wheel, you have yellow, and if you look at the colors next to it, like orange, red, pink, you're gonna have a really easy time going to any of those colors and getting a true to tone sort of experience. Looking across the color wheel, maybe if you're going for a really extreme shade, you'll still see some pretty good results, but it's not as likely as the ones right next to it.
What colors can I use if I have brown hair?
So brown hair is, like we said, working with a brown piece of paper. Because it's so much darker, any color on top of that brown is going to show up a lot less brightly than it would on top of dark blonde or platinum blonde hair. Brown at its core as a color is still just a more pigmented version of dark blonde. So it's still really made up of orange and yellow tones. So when you consider which colors are going to look best on top of brown hair, you want to look at that side of the color wheel. Like pink, orange, red, any shade like that is going to look a lot better on top of brown hair and show up a lot more brightly than something on the other side of the color wheel like green, purple, or blue.
Purple especially will actually just show up even darker because purple and yellow are opposites on the color wheel. They'll just continue to cancel each other out. So we find that purples on top of brown hair actually just make an ashier brown, which is why we made rose gold for brown hair. We wanted people with brown hair to experience that same colorful lifestyle that, people who bleach their brown hair like yours truly know and love.
What colors can I use if I have copper hair?
So guess what, you guys? Copper, same side of the color wheel. So things like reds, oranges, they'll really work well to enhance an already existing natural copper or sort of push it a little bit more intensely. But because copper has those red tones moving across the color wheel to anything like green, you're gonna find that it creates a really nice neutral brown. Because whenever you mix colors that are across from each other on the color wheel, that's what you get. That's how they cancel each other out. So sticking with that sort of warm side, those reds, oranges, pinks, you're gonna see much more colorful results as opposed to canceled results.
What colors can I use if I have black hair?
So black hair is a little different from all of the other colors we've talked about, and it's because the hair strand is so pigmented and so saturated with pigment that no matter what color you put on top of it, you're not going to see any noticeable result.
What we've noticed is that sometimes our clients with extremely dark brown hair or black hair will apply a color like extreme blue or extreme purple over their hair, and in direct sunlight they might see a slight color shift, but really because that black hair is so dense, it absorbs almost all of the light around it, you really don't get much of that color payoff. So if you're curious about that and you have black hair, strand test and see if you like it.
What colors can I use if I have naturally gray hair?
Technically, the color is light enough and ashy enough that it should be able to show almost any color. And by ashy, I mean that it rests in sort of a more blue spectrum as opposed to an orange or yellow spectrum. Even though it should hypothetically show any color, depending on the structure of your hair, it might not show anything at all. It just might not attach to it. The solution to that is to go to your stylist and get it lifted just a little bit to open that hair strand up to accept a little bit of color in there.
The reason this happens with gray strands is because they have a different cuticle as compared to strands of every other color that typically grow out of humans' heads. Their strand cuticle tends to be a lot denser and a lot more closed and less porous than the other types of strands.
You may see that coming through as when people describe their gray hair as wiry. It's a little coarser. It doesn't feel the same.
If you feel like doing some Googling on hair cuticle strands, the difference between gray and brown or gray and blonde, you get some really weird shit that probably no one cares to look at, to be honest, except us.
I mean, you'll either really like it or you'll be really bored, so.
If you feel bored already, don't Google it.
That's all. That's all the colors in hair that we know about.
If we didn't answer your question, you've got something else you want to ask us, you could email our color expert team and they will get back to you really quickly and help you with anything that you need.
When you email them, just be sure to include a picture of your hair in natural light and what you want it to be. That's it for today. We'll see you next time.
Bye!